Welcome to the Planning for Life podcast with certified financial planner professional Russell Jacobs and financial life advisor Carl Coolidge. Carl and Russell will share creative strategies and ideas for overcoming challenges in your personal and financial life. Inevitably, life happens, and we will empower you to reach your destination. Thanks for joining us. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to another podcast with Carl Coolidge. Today, we're going to get historical. Planning is something that has really come to the forefront of the world and our understanding of what a financial advisor does. But not everybody starts off in the industry as a planner. Many people start off, either selling investments, mutual funds, annuities, or insurance, but then they realize at one point in their planning or their financial advice life that planning is very important. And Jacobs Coolidge and Company has really embraced planning. So we're going to talk to Carl Coolidge today about their planning process. So Carl, welcome to the show, man. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how and when you realized that planning really needed to be the focus of what you offer to your clients.
Well, I would say it probably was, 12 or 15 years ago. We did some very basic planning, or what people would probably refer to as needs analysis, probably 15 years ago, which was a form of planning. It certainly wasn't true financial or fee-based financial planning. But we saw the need at that time to get away from the traditional model that was going on back then, which was, the stockbroker mentality, selling accounts, getting commissions, or the traditional life insurance salesman just selling policies, and really had no rhyme nor reason for why you were doing the things that you're doing. And don't get me wrong, some people have immediate needs and they need just life insurance, or they need just to do some savings. But what we really wanted to work on is having that overall approach. I don't say holistic because I think that's an overused term, but we wanted to make sure that here's why we're doing the things that we're doing. And I think it just makes our clients feel more comfortable to understand, okay, this is how it fits into my entire picture. So I think we were ahead of the curve and we learned that it made sense. And I will even say today, a lot of our competition will refer to themselves as financial planners, but what we've seen is there's not a lot of planning going on. It's just a term they're using, but not really embracing true financial planning.
Right. They're not embracing that all-encompassing aspect of the planning. They'll do like a cash flow analysis or a retirement income analysis, which are important things to do, but you dive much more deeply. Were there any sort of major events that happened in your relationships with clients that you were like, okay, yep, this really solidifies what we want to be as financial planners?
I think it really is just once you see when you're meeting with a couple, a husband and wife, and they really, typically what you see is one of them handles all of the finances. Again, very rarely are both of them involved in that process. And so what I think it really did, or, if you want to call it the aha moment as we're working on these plans, and I still see it today, is you see the spouse, again, it could be either one of them that says, oh my gosh, we're spending money there, or we're doing this with the dollars, or we're actually on retirement, or if something happened to you, we don't have the money available to do the things we need to do, or, the kids' college is not taken care of. So it's more of an eye-opening experience. And I think what it does is really help get them on the same page because, as you know, Matt, what's the most concerning item that married or couples have? It's finances, right? And so if you can alleviate some of that financial insecurity, or at least give them a track to run on, they seem very happy and pleased to have that. And so then it becomes, okay, here's what we need to do to get where we need to go. And then we implement the proper things to help you get there. So to me, that's what I really have seen that makes this so impactful. And we're here because I want to be able to realistically sit down with someone and say, okay, you're 40 years old and we want to make sure you can retire when you're 65. And so this plan gives us a way to accomplish that.
When people go through the financial planning process, it seems quite daunting to some people. Why don't we talk about how long it takes on average? How much of it is really what happens in your firm, and how much of it really needs to happen with the client specifically?
Well, that's a trick question, Matt.
Well, I know that's why why I just gave it to you, dude.
I know. You like to do that to me. We ideally would love to finish someone's financial plan in 2 to 3 months, sometimes sooner. But what it comes down to is preparation. And so, again, getting a lot of the basic data is pretty easy, or providing, 401k statements, retirement statements, insurance details, discussing some of their property and casualty details, getting their wills or trust documents. Most of the time that moves pretty quickly, and that is the heavy lifting that the client has to do. But the hardest part of what we do, and I think what makes our planning a bit unique, is we focus on expenses. So if you don't know how much you spend, you really don't know how much you're going to need long term, because the old model was go back and say, okay, you need to save and get to some amount of money. Well, we think the opposite of what are you spending? What are truly going to be long-term expenses that you're going to have pre-retirement, post-retirement, and then you need to build your savings around that. So back to your question, what takes the longest is this expense worksheet. So nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to see where they spend money. A lot of people can't even find where they spend the money. And a lot of them don't want to have the conversation between the spouses. So, I always present it as, you're not going to enjoy this. It's not going to be a good time. Get a bottle of wine, sit down on Friday night and start working through it, because this is the most crucial piece of your financial plan. And again, we'll have some that are very organized that can knock that out pretty quickly. We have others that struggle or just don't want to do it, or just can't pull the numbers together. And so, we'll have some plans that take 6 months or even longer, just because they can't put their hands on the data, or they're not organized enough to get it, or it's just not a priority or a focus for them. And so ideally, like I say, probably 3 months on the slow end. If we have, a more straightforward plan, it could be 30 days, even 45 days. And that's what I say just for the plan, but our engagement really goes for the entire year, because we're always massaging and, making tweaks and changes and answering questions they have, because what you see is once they get through the plan, then that's when they really begin to have more questions.
Let's talk about how often you make changes to the planning process, not after what you were just talking about, lots of tweaks and adjustments here and there, but how often do you and your team sit down and say, okay, let's break this down again and let's look at what we're taking our clients through?
We actually do it quite frequently, over the years, over this 12 to 15 year period. I would say we've changed the process probably 8 to 10 times. And again, some of those are major tweaks with verbiage and other items. Some are more focused on how we're collecting data, because we want to be most efficient. Because again, most of our clients are very busy people. They're time challenged, so they can't just sit down in the middle of a Tuesday and knock out the expense worksheet. So what we're trying to do is find ways to help them gather this information most efficiently. And so we're always looking at how can we do that? How can we change it? What questions can we ask differently to really get to the root of what they're trying to accomplish? How can we, over those years, we've moved more digital, where we can have, where they can type in not only their expense sheet, but also any fact-finding data we have. We've embraced different technologies where they can upload statements and documents, so they're not having to send via email. And all of that really wasn't a thing, 10, 12, 15 years ago. So I think we've always done a good job with evolving with technology, because that's obviously the biggest change in all of our worlds each day. So we're constantly looking at the process. And as I say, there's always something I know we can make better. So it's absolutely an ongoing process.
Not to have you do any specific recommendations, but you were just talking about how technology has made such a huge difference just overall in people's financial lives. There are a couple of programs that are out there that, I'm trying not to use their names, that help organize your spending. Do you recommend for people to plug in their checking accounts and stuff like that for that?
We do. Again, in our opinion, that's where everything starts, is with really defining your expenses. And we don't call it your budget because that's not really what we're here to tell you is how much you can or cannot spend. We want to find out how much you're spending, and then is that spending sustainable inside of your, your long-term plan or whatever goals you have. So I think, yes, some of those apps, and as you say, there's a handful of them now, and they keep getting better of trying to really understand where your dollars are going each month and how much you're spending will dovetail nicely with our, expense sheet. But the biggest thing I've seen with those various programs or apps is you have to clearly characterize what those dollars are for. Because if you don't spend the time on the front end, then you're just going to have a lot of either uncategorized, or the software may not know a certain place you like to eat. They may think it's a gas station or something. So you have to spend the time to get it right. And I think it's an ongoing process. I don't think you can do it for a month or two and say, okay, I now have a great grasp on my spending. I think you probably have to do it for a year so you can sort of see the trends and get a real sense of where your money's going each month.
I've read so many articles, Carl, and I know you have too, that people spend more time planning their vacation than they do retirement. Why do you think that is?
Because retirement's not fun, Matt. The vacation's fun. You get to pick out where you want to go. You get to plan the things you want to do. You really get to coordinate everything, and it gives you something immediate to hope for. Meaning if you know you have a vacation coming up in a month from now, you're counting down the days typically when you're working of, I can get a breather. I can, relax with my family. I'll be somewhere I really want to enjoy, or I'll get to see a new site. And so I think there's a large sense of enjoyment to that. And it's not to say people don't enjoy retirement. I mean, that's the hope of this entire process, but it's such a long-term play for most people that it's not tangible. They can't see it. They can't say, wow, I'm saving this money or doing these things, and it's something I'm not going to see for 20 or 30 years, where the vacation is much more tangible. And so to me, that's the big piece, is it's in front of them. They can deal with it, and it's not such a long-term item where it seems so far away that there's no immediate reward from it.
Well, how do you chunk that out, though? How can you have people understand that it is really, it's a marathon of a vacation, but it is like a bunch of mini vacations. How can you help people change their mindset and dive a little bit more deeply into the financial planning process? Or is it just something that, you just have people go through as they go through it? Help me understand how you could, and maybe this context will be a little bit better. There's 3 phases of retirement, right? The go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go, right? And I think we've actually talked about that in the past. Does that help people conceptualize what sort of planning they need to do?
I think in some ways, and everybody has a different situation that they're concerned with, depending on when we meet with them. Some people are more focused on if something happens to me, in the event of disability or death. Some people are more concerned about their kids and college funding. And then some people are focused more on retirement or on all the above. And so I think what I try to do is let's take it in bite-sized chunks. So what do we need to accomplish first, and can we deal with that? Meaning insurance is probably most tangible. You have a need, you can cover that need. That's pretty straightforward. With college funding and retirement, it gets to be a bit more of a challenge because that can change year to year based on spending habits, saving habits, and rates of return. So what I try to do is, let's look at some of the small victories or the progress we're making on reducing debts where appropriate, or getting up to a certain level of savings. And that's why, we really believe in annual renewals of our financial plans, because that's what people need, that check-in and that sense of accomplishment to know they're on track, or either they're not. But I think it puts it top of mind where they can understand, okay, I've got to keep continuing to make these strides, but if I can see some positive on a year by year basis, then it helps me focus on that really long-term goal.
I'm going to get touchy-feely on you for a minute here, and I know how much you love that.
Absolutely.
What sort of feeling do you want people to have when they get done with the whole process, right? So when they've gone through your financial planning process and the plan has been implemented for maybe a good couple of years, and they see the value of the plan, how do you, if you could wave a magic wand, how would you want them to feel?
I guess the word that would come to me first would be relief. I want them to feel like, okay, we went through this process. We got very detailed. We went very deeply into our situation. And now I know if we're doing these things that we should be doing on a monthly and annual basis, then I have a sense of comfort and relief that I'm going to be on track to meet my goals. And again, retirement's the one we're focusing on, but there can be a lot of different goals for people as they work through the planning process. It could be a second home, it could be college, it could be, partial retirement. It can be a lot of different things, but I want them to have the sense of, again, comfort, relief, being on the same page now, remove some of that financial stress, which is true. And the stats are amazing of what, couples worry about. And it's just a huge stressor, the financial piece. But to give them some relief. Now, is it ever going to go away? No. But if I could walk out of planning over a couple of years and say, yeah, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to be in a really, really good place long term, that to me would be viewed as successful.
To wrap up the show today, Carl, what is something that you would want to leave people with about the importance of planning, with your firm?
Well, I would just say kind of what we've discussed, which is, actually do a plan. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a plan, you're really not going to know where you need to go, what you need to be doing to get there. So it's, as they say, instead of ready, fire, aim, it's ready, aim, fire. I mean, anything that you do in life, just like the vacation analogy, you don't just say, we'll just fly somewhere and show up and see what happens. You go through a very detailed process of, okay, I need to get flights here, or I need to drive here on this date to be able to stay at this hotel and then do these activities that we want to do. It's really the same thing. It's you've got to have a plan in order to do those things. And yes, savings money is great. Having some insurance is great. Having your will in place is great, but how do all of those work together? Are you doing the things you need to do, or doing enough of those things to achieve your goals? And to me, the only way you can determine that is if you do a plan, because if not, it's just doing these transactions, if you will, in a silo.
Well, Carl, thank you very much for giving us the history and an insight into what people can expect when they go through your planning process.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Well, I want everybody to take a moment and think about who they know who need this information, right? You might be one of those few who've gone through the planning process or gone through a planning process, and other people who truly need to go through the planning process because you want your friends and family to feel just like you do, understanding that feeling of happiness and security and ease, and basically being able to enter into retirement in a relaxed sort of state of mind because you understand what expectations are put on you and what you can do within retirement. So make sure that you share this podcast with them. And if you have not gone through the planning process, Carl, could you share with everybody your contact information real quick?
Absolutely. You can go to our website, which is jacobsandcoolidge.com, or you can certainly reach us at our offices. Primary phone number is 912-265-2876. And if you go to the website, you'll certainly see all our email, phone numbers, contact information, and we'd look forward to the opportunity to help you out.
And you all should look forward to the opportunity to be helped, because we've interviewed many, many people who've gone through the planning process over the years, and it really does make a huge difference in how you are going to view your retirement. So for everybody at Jacobs and Coolidge and Company, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions expressed and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Russell C. Jacobs III, Carl B. Coolidge, James Jacobs, and William Schwartz are registered representatives of and offer securities, investment advisory, and financial planning services through MML Investor Services, LLC, member SIPC, Supervisory Office, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacobs Coolidge and Company, LLC is not a subsidiary or affiliate of MML Investor Services, LLC, or its affiliated companies.